On, right?
The pressure is on. Hey, security peeps. This is Renee Small. I'm back with another Breaking Into Cybersecurity edition, and I'm here with the infamous hype man, Ken Underhill, aka Cyber Oprah. Hey, Ken, say hi to everybody.
Hey, everyone. Hey, Renee. Thanks for having me on. It's great to be back on you guys' show.
Absolutely. So we want you here for all types of reasons. And
Oh boy.
first and foremost, yeah. So whoever does not know Ken, I mean, everybody should know Ken in cybersecurity, but this is actually going out there to people to help them demystify cybersecurity. So with this season 3 of the podcast, really trying to take this beyond the cybersecurity community and go out into the world and demystify cybersecurity for people who are either looking to get into the field or just have no idea what the field is and want to learn more about it. So happy to have you here because over the past couple of days during Cybersecurity Awareness Month, we've had a number of people come on who have talked about their various backgrounds. I mean, some emotional, passionate stories from Katoria Henry, from Amir Vincent, people who have literally grown up in you. I saw some similarities there because I was looking back in your background, saw that you came from like pretty much a very poor background. You talk about this and how you have evolved. You went to your former military, went into the military and then became a nurse, transitioned all the way to the point where now you have, I think this is the first cybersecurity TV show. So Ken, tell me about the first thing I want you to talk about is like where you grew up and what made you kind of think about getting into cybersecurity after, tell us your story.
Sure. I mean, I grew up in the North. I won't say exactly where, right? Because, there's people doing OSINT right now as we're filming this. But I grew up in a northern place, very cold, very broke. Many times didn't have a lot of food growing up. Sometimes I went without food. And throughout that, right, there was a number of people that stepped in, right? There was one of the stories I share is a gentleman, I think it was Nabisco he worked at. He worked as a driver. And back then, if they dented the boxes or like tore them open as a driver, they couldn't put them on the shelf in the store. And what they would do is they would be able to buy those at like a discount, a heavy discount. And so he would deliberately, I won't say his name because I don't want him to get in trouble, but he would deliberately damage boxes of food to be able to bring, food to us. And so there was many people like that throughout growing up that sort of stepped in. It was still tough, right? Adversity isn't easy. And when you're in those situations, it's a little easier, in my opinion, to deal with them as a child than as an adult, because as a child, you still kind of got that play mindset. You're still kind of resilient. As an adult, you start feeling sorry for yourself and, all these things that we do as adults. So that's where it started at. I grew through a lot of adversity. I won't share all that. From there, I was never really into computers as a kid. I mean, I played Oregon Trail. That's probably dating me a little bit as far as my age, but I really wasn't into computers. I was more into girls, chasing girls, and that kind of drove my directive at that stage in my life. I I got a scholarship to a community college. We could go for hours, right, on my background, but I got a scholarship to a community college and kind of had to get my act together to be able to get that. And I did like a year there, and then I was kind of like, I don't, taking some classes. I was still kind of working like, minimum wage jobs. And I just decided to go in the military. One of the driving factors was, again, the girl factor. I was like, I want to be a paramedic and get girls. By the way, that's never a good reason to do anything in life. You should have a little more focus. And so I ended up going to the military as a medic, ended up also getting a nursing license in there. And so I had done IT shortly before the military. I'd done it, briefly, and then I decided to go, into healthcare. And so I did that for a number of years. Kind of got tired of the IT departments where I was working as a nurse. I was like, I could do this better. I was teaching them, right? I was like, well, this doesn't make any sense, right? They should know how to do these things. So I moved back into IT and then was doing like network admin, sysadmin stuff. Started doing some analyst stuff. They kind of just looped that into my job title. I was running vulnerability scans, et cetera. moved into pen testing again, because the organization I was at was cheap. And so they didn't want to hire anybody. So they just kind of fell in my lap. And then from there, I did that for a number of years. I probably 5, 6, maybe 7 years, working both in the IT and cyber side of healthcare. And then many people know me when I pivoted over to Cybrary, where I created courses on hacking, forensics, et cetera. I think I have like 20 plus courses on the site right now. And then from there, I started my own companies around cyber, right? So, I have a tech company where basically now we've pivoted to just helping cybersecurity companies do the marketing side, right? Kind of helping them grow. And then, as you were talking about, the TV show, right? So last year I started a podcast called Cyber Life. I really wanted to just kind of showcase people in the industry that maybe didn't get a voice all the time, right? These weren't people that were like at the top of the industry necessarily or well known, and I just wanted a place where people could come on and feel comfortable, and especially with minorities, right? And not saying that nobody else gets a shot, but like it's just there's certain things you see when you're woke, and I just wanted a platform to be able to do that. And so I've got 5,000-ish downloads a month or whatever. It's a pretty decent sized podcast. I don't do it as much as I probably should. I probably have a lot more people if I did it more consistently. But I was fortunate because of that to interact with some people and become friends with them that are one of them has a background in Hollywood, the other one has a background at Wall Street, and so they decided to launch channels, right? Their own streaming TV channels, and so one of them they launched in June of this year. I'll just plug it. It's called Promote Her. It's targeted towards women to showcase women, especially women business owners, especially minority women business owners. So it's a great channel. And then they opened up another opportunity. They decided to open another channel. I like to think partially because I pestered them as a male because I couldn't get on the Promote Her channel, but also because they wanted to do the right thing. And so with that, it's a new channel launching in November called MechaStream, and on that is going to be the Cyber Life show. So my podcast has evolved to an actual show now, which I'm super excited about. Like you said, I feel like Oprah, maybe without the book club and stuff like that.
Well, that's coming next. I foresee that. I foresee the books. I've already seen like all this book sharing and book stuff going on in the cybersecurity space. So I see that happening. We'll be on Ken's couch.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to make you cry, Renee. I hope you're okay with that.
Well, I'll cry. I'll cry for you. Only
Cool.
for Ken.
Cool.
So Ken, you some of the things you talked about just now is taking that, going and creating Cyber Life, the Cyber Life podcast, and having that as a space where there were different voices and voices where that may not necessarily have gotten much exposure. Tell me more about what made you what was the impetus to start it, and talk to me about the types of voices that have been on, some of your favorite ones.
Well, I won't say favorites because I don't want to anyone to be like, oh, he didn't say my name.
Oh, popular.
I started it.
Audience favorites.
Yeah. I started it shortly before Black Hat last year. I don't remember exactly why. I think someone had mentioned you should have your own podcast. You have a nice voice or something. And I've always had people tell me you've got a nice phone voice and stuff. Sometimes it's creepy when some people do it, but I think that's kind of how I got it started. I was like, all right, let's just sort of. I had seen all the other ones out there, and I thought, okay, well, yeah, there could be cyber news and stuff like that, but CyberWire does that very well, right? I don't want to that's not my thing, and so I just was kind of I was looking for something missing, right? And at that time, there were a lot of podcasts that are very popular now were just getting started, right? Or they'd just been in their infancy. And so I was like, okay, well, what's different? I was like, well, what I'm good at is backing up a step. I don't believe in playing on your weaknesses whatsoever, right? Because even if you put all this effort into your weakness, you're only going to improve marginally. But if you focus on the things you're really good at and you master those and you become the absolute best at those, that's what you should focus on, right? So when you recognize your gifts, whatever it is, go all in on those, because you can hire people to do the weakness stuff, right? You can hire, I suck at Excel, right? I hire people to do Excel spreadsheets. I don't need to worry about that, right? I'm good at whatever. So I focus on that. And so I realized that I was good at interviewing people and just talking to people. And even though I'm an introvert, I'm good at, especially like, over the phone, I'm really good at talking to people where I don't have to like see them or whatever. And so that's kind of why I started that, right? I was like, all right, I know I'm good at this type of format, and I don't have to keep coming up with content, right? I just bring people on, I ask them questions, and and they just talk and share their story, and and hopefully it inspires someone to go in that career path or to get into the industry, or or maybe it's just someone out there is having a similar struggle, and they hear that's, oh man, someone else went through that and this is what they did, and that changes their life. And so that was kind of as kind of sappy as it might sound, that was sort of the overarching goal, is to allow the podcast to impact the world, right? And it sounds a little cliche, so to speak, but that was sort of my goal with it. I never, even though I'm a business-minded person, I never had the goal with the podcast itself to turn it into some massive revenue generating, machine or whatever. I see a lot of people trying to do that. And like, for me, it was just more authentic, right? It was more, I wanted to be authentic. I wanted the authenticity, and I wanted it to really be a platform that could both allow people to share their voice, as well as allow other people to learn from that voice and those stories, and just really have it impact their lives in a positive way.
I love that. I like how you say impact the world, because I think when I first connected with you, I don't know how long ago it was, your goal at the time was to maybe train 100,000 people or 1 million, something like that. But ultimately it's gone up and up and up. So it's like train 100,000, then it was like train 1 million. Now it's like impact the world. And I absolutely love that. And I think you're, some of the points that you made around, yield to your strengths and not your weaknesses. So true. Like, double down on what it is that is easy for you, you're passionate about, you want to do things like that. And it will only get better. So talk to us about the audience's favorite episode.
So far, the number one episode viewership wise is the one with Katia Dean. That's still the first episode I did with her is still the number one most viewed episode. We all know she's world famous, but just about every episode, world famous.
Love it.
I will say, Renee, that interestingly enough, when I looked at the analytics, because I did a few episodes like just on my own, right, like early on, mm-hmm. And when I looked at the analytics, nobody cared about me just talking, right? Like, the number one episodes are where I've got someone else on sharing their story, their struggles, their experiences. We're having a light natured conversation. In fact, for a lot of people that came on, it was their very first podcast. I had to cut parts out, right? Like, oh my God, I'm so nervous to be on. I cut all that stuff out. Some people, we had some really authentic conversations and really deep dive into a lot of challenges and struggles and adversity that people had faced. And so what you hear on the podcast isn't everything, right? Because I cut out a lot of stuff because yes, it's authentic. Yes, it's the story, but like, there's certain things that people trust to say to me in a conversation that in my opinion aren't for the masses, right? It's a private conversation. And so you'll hear these stories on the podcast, and also, when people are on the show, but understand that that's not the entire story, but it's because there's a level of trust there, right? And whether the other person is okay with it or not, I just don't feel comfortable putting, like all Renee's secrets, out there for the world, because for me, there's certain things that I might open up to. Like, let's say Renee and I are doing a show episode or something and filming it. There's things that I may open up to about, my childhood or other struggles in life. And I don't want the world to know that, right? Because there's a certain like trust factor with that other person that you have, even if you just met them. So I'm saying that to say that what you hear on the episodes or what you'll see on the CyberLife TV show when it launches, you're not getting the full picture, but take the message that you get from that episode, right, and try to apply it to your life. You're not getting everything because it's not in my opinion, it's just not the right thing to do, to share someone's deepest secrets and hurt and pain. And, and I know I mentioned right before this that someone jokingly calls me Cyber Oprah, but I will, in my opinion, I will never, well, not my opinion, but I will never, like I said, someone trusts you in that conversation to really open up to you about some very painful things sometimes. And I will never exploit that to try to get viewership or whatever. Like, I'm not TMZ or whatever, I'm not that. So I just want to put that out there. So sometimes you'll listen to the episode and you may think that the person didn't go through all the struggles you went through, but I can probably tell you that just about anything you could think of, people both on the podcast as well as the TV show have gone through just about every situation possible. And so just try to find the message in that show that relates to you, and hopefully it benefits you in some capacity.
So Ken, I think I'm curious though, because with people sharing this information with you, and they know they're being recorded, and they know that it's part of who they are, do you think that potentially some of those struggles and some of the hardship is beneficial for others to hear, not necessarily from a trying to exploit the person per se, but from that person who is going through, a similar circumstance and saying, wow, look at this person on the other side of that.
So for me, I still am against that. Now, I will say that if a story is shared with me in that capacity, typically with the Cyber Life TV show, I'll more than likely I will have a blog. And so I'll probably share it there in some capacity, but with generic names and, to protect identity. I still, and when I'm on with these individuals recording the episodes, we have that conversation, right? Yes, it's being recorded, but I'm going to cut out these parts because, number one, the show is only 30 minutes, right? There's commercial breaks, all these things, so really we can't deep dive into, a 4 hour, or hour long, or like, we can't really deep dive into a lot of the struggles people go through. But I think a more appropriate location to have those where people can see different situations or struggles that maybe they're going through right now, or they can anticipate going through, is something like a blog, right? Or articles, or something where there's some obfuscation in the identity of the individual. I'm still just firmly against, because I've had that situation where I've opened up in the past, and whether it's for exploitation or not, people have shared some things that were extremely tough struggles for me, and I didn't want anyone to know about. And yeah, I might have, if it was recorded or something at that time, I maybe I would have said yes, but I still didn't really want that, but maybe I would have felt pressured. And so I'm just not going to do that, right? I'm just going to put that out there right now. So, if anyone's listening, they're like, well, what about, I'm not going to do that, because I feel that, a lot of people trust me as a confidant, people have, unfortunately, in the past, I've had people like admit crimes to me, like, don't tell me that stuff. I don't want to know that. But like,
what's the craziest crime you've heard?
Nothing like murder or something. Like, come on, I'd have to report that. But people being shady, like, with their taxes or whatever, especially business owners. I'm like, you shouldn't do it that way, right? Because the energy always comes back to you, right? If you're doing shady stuff, the energy always comes back to you in some capacity. But for me, it's more about being a confidant. Like, just because someone says you can share this struggle. Now, if it's just a struggle of, like, for example, like Katia, right? Like, Katia was unemployed for 9 months. And so she shared her struggles of, like, what she did to kind of, she started a blog and, like, that's different, right? But, like, if someone's raped as a child, I'm not sharing that. I don't care what the industry says. I'm not sharing that. But I may share an article with, a different identity or something, and just kind of say, like, some people have been, gone through this as a child, and these are some of the job roles they've done, and they got through it this way, right? They coped with it this way.
Right.
something like that to me is fine, but I'm not ever going to share those really, what some people might call those juicy details, even though somebody else might be going through that struggle. They can see that just fine, and they can learn from that just fine through a anonymous type of environment versus somebody having to put themselves out there, because it just makes it a really uncomfortable conversation for that person moving forward, especially in the workplace, right? People come up and start saying, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry that happened to you," and
right.
it just gets really awkward.
Yeah. No, I understand. I was curious more about, and Katia is a great example because she literally was on LinkedIn. So it was public and everything was shared. And even you talk about, you give your bio, it's on LinkedIn. I grew up poor. Now I'm doing this, all these different things. But I'm always kind of curious as to people who, some people I believe, even though they've gone through some really, really, really horrific things, that they want to share that and want to show others, like that are in that dark places, like you can overcome this. So I was just curious about all of that and where they'll end up in the show. So talk to us about the actual episodes, like how many episodes? You said it was 30 minutes each show. So how many episodes, and tell us about, not every juicy detail, obviously, because then we either will want to watch or won't want to watch. It'll be like the Housewives, I guess. So talk to us about what's going on. What's the first couple episodes like? And it's coming out in November, right?
Yeah, so it's coming out in November. Don't have a actual date yet. I'm planning for early November. I've got to get with the production team and actually film the in-studio parts. So I've been filming people via Zoom right now to kind of get the interview parts of it. So a lot of different things doing with the show, right? So number one aspect will be interviews with various people in the industry. I wanted to keep that authenticity from the podcast and kind of pivot it over to the show. I'm going to have in-person filming done with some business owners. So I'll be teaching them some different cybersecurity topics with like fun activities, and I just wanted to kind of spice it up a little. I'm going to have an episode with a forensics guy here in Houston, and also bring on some kids. And so we're going to teach them some forensic stuff. Have some candy, of course. It's kids. You got to have candy to keep them occupied, and then send them back to the parents. And so a little variety with that, right? I've got season 1 is planned for 12 episodes. I've already got 40 people booked for recordings. I've done only a few of those so far. So literally I've got season 2, probably season 3, but keep them coming, right? I just want to say, keep them coming. Reach out to me. I'll send you a link to get on the calendar, get recorded. So basically the episodes will come out Wednesday nights, 8:00 your local time. So if you're in India, you watch at 8:00 your time. If you're here in the US, whatever your time zone, 8:00 your time on Wednesday nights. The good news is, if you can't make that, within a couple of days, the episodes will then be uploaded into a repository. So you'll be able to, kind of like a Netflix, right? Which people are calling Kenflix. So you can watch Kenflix, at your convenience. You can binge watch. And as part of that, I'm mindful that there's a ton of episodes, and there's I can only launch for a month, right? Once a week. So I'm exploring options to figure out how to get like a massive, influx so you can really binge watch. So I'll figure that out. But initially, expect 1 episode a week, and kind of things in tranches. And what I'll also do, I'm actually building the website today for the show, and so I'm gonna have parts of episodes that I'll kind of teasers, right? I'll have like little teasers and put those on the site so you can get a little taste of each episode before it comes out, and just give you a little nugget or whatever. I also want to mention, if you're out there in the industry and you've got like free resources for people that are trying to look at to get into cyber, send them my way. Because the other thing I'm going to do with the website is kind of have a repository where people can go and they can watch free courses. So if you got free stuff like that and you want to link it, on the site, let's link it on the site. If you got paid stuff, no, this, free repository. If you got paid stuff, we can talk about something, but you're not getting that for free. Like, I really want to have something for when people watch this show, because it's going out to the masses, right? It's not just cyber people watching it. It's going to be the general public as well. And it's going out to, here in the US, it's going to be reaching like 72 million households or something. Globally, like 300 million people roughly. These are rough estimates or whatever initially. We're actually planning initially over 10,000 people watching the first few episodes. So there's good traction, right? There's going to be a good amount of people watching it. So if you got free stuff that you want to offer to people that are maybe interested in cyber and they just want to get a taste of different areas, please reach out to me on LinkedIn, and we'll figure out how we can kind of get that up in that repository on the site, as I mentioned.
That's amazing. Those numbers are crazy. And it's such a good resource for people, especially since so many people have no idea what cybersecurity is. It's one big mystery. So super excited. Every time I talk to people outside of the industry, they're like, it's one big mystery, like they think it's all the thing. So when I asked you the other day, well, first, let me shout out some people who are here. So Katia, she's on here saying she's still lit about it. Danielle Goodwin. Chris Cochran talking about see you soon, Ken.
Oh,
Chris,
yeah.
I'm feeling hurt right now, Chris. I'm feeling like a second-class citizen.
I've been pestering him and Ron for a minute to let's do a recording for this TV show, guys.
They know I love them.
Oh yeah, great guys. And by the way, if listeners out there haven't heard of the Hacker Valley Studio podcast, be sure to check it out. Those guys are great. Great group, great couple of guys, and helping a lot of people and interviewing some great people.
They do, and we had a run going here for a couple months where we broke LinkedIn on with Hacker Valley Studio and Breaking Into Cybersecurity. So nice. It was fun every Friday for about 18 weeks or so, 17 weeks we went. So Danielle says, getting cybersecurity into the hands of the masses, and a bunch of hearts. Yes, that's what we're trying to do, Danielle. I mean, people need to know about this. Katia says, we still love you, Renee. Feeling the love, feeling kind of like a second-class citizen here. So Ken, some of the things that you, some of the people that you're bringing on, so you have 40 guests coming over the course for the first season, for season 1. And
put them
out.
Yeah. It's going to be staggered, but like I said, I'm trying to figure out a way to sort of release episodes into that KenFlix repository sooner than, because they're going to be dripped out basically once a week live, but I kind of want to have additional stuff in there. So understand that even though, like, if that works out, let's just say in December I upload 50 of them into the repository. That doesn't mean your show is not going to run live, right? Like, it'll go into a cycle, but I don't want people to. I want the demand, right, for people to tune in weekly, but I also understand, like, we all have lives, right? Like, I binge watch stuff, right? Like, I get really busy and then I'll go binge watch like Tiger King. Like, I binge watch that, because everybody else is talking about it. So I'm with you, right? I want to say I'm with you. Yeah. So season 1 is 12 episodes planned. But understand that, like, I've got like 40 people booked, and it's a mixture of people, right? It's a mixture of, now it is people with experience. I want to put that out there. If you're a newbie, this isn't the right, I'll probably have some kind of like career or I'm trying to get in type of episode where we talk about some of the struggles, but understand right now it's not what I'm shooting for, just because the general public, is part of the audience, right? So right now they don't necessarily care about struggles getting it, they kind of care more about, like, what is cyber, and they want to hear from people with experience and stuff like that, right? So just kind of FYI, if you're looking to get on the show and you're still trying to get in the industry, it's probably not a good fit right now, but just reach out to me anyways. But yeah, so I've got like 40 people scheduled so far, and that's confirmed on the calendar. There's probably 10 or 15 more that have reached out. They just haven't booked an appointment yet. And then I've got more people on my list, right, that I still got to contact. And it's just, I guess I didn't necessarily expect, I guess I should have, but I mean, I know Renee, so people see that and they want to book, but I guess I didn't expect this much. It's weird, right? Because the industry is very supportive, right? I just want to put that out there. Extremely supportive, phenomenal individuals. I guess I just didn't expect this much support early on, right? Like, but people are just like, I want to come on. I want to, I want to share. I want to talk about this topic, that topic. And I'm not saying no, because these are all things, I mean, it's a massive industry, right? Like, these are all things that need to be talked about. And so, on my end, I just have to kind of figure out the sort of the logistics of like, how do I put all this content out there now? I've got all this content coming in. How do I put it out there for the masses? So I just want to say it's been phenomenal so far. And like the show's not even launched yet, right? Like it's pretty insane to, it's just insane to, number one, to think of where I started at in life and sort of where I am now. I've been extremely fortunate, but I didn't sit on the couch and this came out of, the ethers, right? Like you have to put in the work. You have to put in the work for years to get opportunities, and you have to be open to them, right? Mark Davenport, who's one of my business coaches and a very close friend, he has a saying he always mentions, and I don't know, he's coined it. I don't know if anyone's heard similar, but basically opportunity favors the bold, right? So as opportunities come, if you are hesitant and you don't take them, it may never come again, right? A lot of people think I'll do it next year, or I'll take that dream job in 6 months when I have some more experience, or when I learned, I can't apply for this job at Google or Amazon or whatever, or Netflix, because I don't have all the criteria in the job description. I can tell you right now, when I used to apply for jobs, like I would always pick the jobs where I had like no similarities, right? Like maybe one or something, right? And I'd shoot for that, because whatever, right? The worst case, they say no, right? But what if they say yes, or you even get that interview, and then you can really showcase yourself. So you just have to take opportunities in life. I'm fortunate that this opportunity came and I jumped on it as soon as I heard about it. And when they asked me like what topic of show, I mean, I was like cybersecurity. Like I didn't know what it was going to be about, but I was like cybersecurity, I just threw out the buzzword and we kind of went from there. So yeah, I just want to, for everyone watching and everyone that watches this later, I just want to, without getting too mushy, and all of us busting out in tears, I just want to completely express gratitude, right? For everything you guys do in your roles, you do for the community, you do for the world, as well as that you've, done for me, right? Even just liking my post or, sharing free resources with the audience. And I mean, just, it's hard to, I'm not a very emotional guy, so, I'm not going to break down in tears. Don't worry, Renee. But I just want to really express gratitude to everyone out there listening, no matter when you listen to this, that you are appreciated. You may not get appreciated by your boss, or society or whatever, but, I appreciate you. I appreciate the work that you're doing. I appreciate the help you're doing for everyone. I see it. I make sure that other people that are very influential see it. And so, I just want to, like I said, just want to say thank you to everyone for that.
That's fantastic, Ken. Having that level of gratitude, I think, is what makes people it draws people to you. And you've always been the type of person who is constantly trying to help people and get more people in the field, and just, consistently, like over the last couple of years that I've known you, and even I know likely way before that, been that person who's like consistently trying to drive to get more people in the industry, make more people aware of security, make it fun, make it interesting, like watching some of your cyber trainings and just I think trainings even before that, where it's just very interesting, very entertaining, and demystifying security. So we talked a little bit about how I put up this post, and you talked about the myths that people have, and we're doing some myth busting this month. Myths people have about security, and I think this is a great forum, because your show will definitely be myth busting. That's what I think is going to happen by showcasing all of these people, because you said it best. A lot of these folks think that, some of the things that I had heard from that post that I put up, people, when I said, hey, what are some of the myths people think about in your cybersecurity career? People think I hack all day. People think I'm just a pen tester. And the one thing that I think that was very, very really resonated with me is one of the things that you said, which is people believe that they don't even understand that part of their role is cyber. Like they don't realize that they're already in the field. So give me a little story about that, about people who you've connected with, who they're actually doing some cybersecurity and then have no idea that part of their job is in cyber.
Yeah, I mean, I know some people working in networking, right? And so just because you're configuring a router, like you're doing network security. And so I think where a lot of people make the mistake is they think that your job title has to have cybersecurity in it, right? For you to be cybersecurity and in the industry and all this stuff. And that's not reality. If you actually look at like the NICE framework and you look at the KSA, so knowledge, skills, and abilities, if you don't know what that acronym is, but if you look at that, you'll recognize that you're actually more than likely doing something in security. Even as a nurse, right? Even looking back as a nurse, I did security, right, in some capacity, because I had to be mindful of, I had to do, accuracy, right? So I had to do accurate reporting, right? Which is, a thing, especially in pen testing. I had to keep patient data safe, right? I had to be mindful of security. I had to make sure that I had a strong password, all these things. And granted, there were some technical controls and stuff in place, but especially when I worked pediatrics in the home with the little critical babies, I had to be mindful of keeping medication safe. I had to keep the paper charting we did at the time safe. When we moved to electronic, I had to keep the laptop, make sure that was locked. So yes, I wasn't like hacking, the Pentagon, but like I was doing security things. So I'm going to talk on two angles real quick. So if you're transitioning from sort of a totally another career path and you're trying to get into IT or cyber, you have to look at your current role and figure out how that kind of applies. So I'll give you an example. And I don't remember exactly what I told this guy, but he was working at a grocery store stocking shelves, right? So most people will be like, there's no way that correlates to security, right? You're stocking shelves, which by the way, I suck at. I worked a job for a pharmacy for like 2 weeks, and they have all these diagrams and stuff, and you have to pin the things the right way. And it's the second slot, not the third. And I wasn't good at that. Like I said, don't play to your weaknesses. So I quit that and I moved on with life. But he's apparently really good at stocking shelves. So what I told him is I was like, look, so you deal with large amounts of inventory, right? Which could equate to large amounts of data, right? So you're able to analyze large amounts of inventory and then segment out that inventory in the right spots, whatever. I was like, pivot it to kind of a data thing, right? Like, just like data, I take a large amount of inventory and I, dissect it. I figure out what's the most critical things and I focus my task on that first and then blah, 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 right? Another thing was, customer service. I was like, all right, that's a soft skill, right? So talk about how you interact with, people of different backgrounds or whatever, right? It doesn't have to be necessarily like, Splunk, right? When you're pivoting from another career, sometimes it's difficult to think in that mindset of what were the security things I did. It's a little easier for things like a nurse or dentist or whatever, because you've had to protect patient data in some capacity. So if you're transitioning from something totally different and trying to get into IT or cyber, think about your current role and the things you do and the things you probably don't even think of that you do, and how those things could translate into different security things. It could even just be from a risk management aspect, right? So maybe you worked as a security guard, right? Or law enforcement. You're good at risk management. So you could be like, all right, I helped reduce risk in this neighborhood by X, right? Sometimes that's all it takes to get you that interview. And then from there, you can showcase that you're learning and all these things. And then the other sort of category of individual is the one, like I mentioned, right, that's already working in some role in IT or DevOps or whatever, and they're thinking they need a job title that says cybersecurity. You don't. Now, I will say that for a lot of people, it's kind of a bucket list item, right? They feel that they need, instead of it saying like IT engineer, they feel like they needed to say cybersecurity engineer in some capacity, because that will open up doors to whatever else. In my opinion, that's a no, right? Some people may argue that down, but in my opinion, if you work more on, your branding, your presentation, your sales skills, then it doesn't matter what your current job title is. You can sell anyone on you, right? We're all salespeople at the end of the day. And if you've ever wondered why, like, you didn't get a job or you didn't get the salary that you were wanting or whatever, it all goes back to your sales skills. It has nothing to do with the fact that you don't know Splunk as well as the person next to you. If you know how to sell yourself and say, well, that might be true, right? Technically, they're a little more advanced. However, blah, 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 right? If you can spin that stuff in a conversation and sell yourself appropriately, then it doesn't necessarily matter. Now, if you're trying to go for a CISO role and you just worked at McDonald's, like, be a little realistic. But I'm talking about if you're kind of, like don't focus too much on the fact that you need cybersecurity in a job title, because you don't. Like, in fact, if you go search the word cybersecurity on like Indeed, you're going to find so many jobs that don't have it in the title. And these are random, so like, don't focus on that. That's a mistake I see a lot of people making. They focus so much on a title and they don't realize that their task they're doing every single day are security related. So just kind of like, it's almost like a self-assessment, right? Like, you take a step back. If you're trying to get into cybersecurity, take a step back on your current job and just ask yourself, okay, like, what do I do in a day or a week or a month? And then jot those down and then say, okay, well, how does this relate to security, right? And then you're going to find, like, oh gosh, 80% of my day is doing security. I didn't even realize it, right? So that's what you have to do. You have to do some self-assessment there. And then that also benefits you secondary by when you go to apply for new jobs, you know how to present yourself, because you're like, I do these security things, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a big myth, is that, and Katia talks about it all the time, right? Like, people think that they're not in the industry, and they are. And then also to that, maybe tertiary, is that they think you have to be totally technical to get a cyber job, right? And you don't. It helps, right? It definitely helps, but you can get jobs and risk, without understanding the actual technology. But the thing with anything, right, is you can't be stagnant. You can't go to a job, get the job. Like, let's just say you're doing risk management. You can't just go get that job in risk management and then expect that you'll never have to learn anything else, right? Like, there's no job exists like that, where you just, like, even a doctor, right? You still have to do continuing education and learn and be abreast of new things. So don't think you're going to get a job and just kind of stay in it, like the olden days. Like that, those days are gone, especially in technology. But you don't have to know everything to get that first job, right? You can get a job. You just have to be creative sometimes. Sometimes you have to do a job you don't want, right? Sometimes you have to do a job title you don't want,
right?
But you have to think bigger. You have to think a lot bigger. And how does this thing tie into kind of my bigger vision in life?
Yeah. I think your point around having that cybersecurity title is so, I could see why people would look to have that. And I totally get what you're saying, because when you do a Google search, or you do a search in Indeed or something, you put in cybersecurity, every job under the sun pops up, because cybersecurity is thankfully a component of so many roles right now, or it's being called out as a component when it wasn't being called out before. In addition, I do believe that people may see that as a way for, when recruiters, for example, hiring managers are looking to fill a role, and they look to, the very first thing they're going to put in there is it matches the title. Mm-hmm. So, if I'm looking for example, I'll be, incident response person, current incident response person, to move into that role. That's the easiest transition, right? But everything you're talking about is selling yourself so that it doesn't align. It doesn't need to easily align to that. So I 100% agree with you, but I could see how people are like, oh my God, I need to have this title, because this title is like the be all end all. Couple comments that are coming in here. Christova Rojas. Hi, Christova. He said, this is great info, especially the soft skills aspect and a lack of knowledge within this industry. I'm gaining more confidence with each interview and guest. This might be something for me. I am so happy about that. You have anything to say to him, Ken?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people overlook the soft skill aspect, right? We hear the buzzword a lot, like, oh, soft skills. I need to do my soft skills. And people that I've spoken with, they focus on customer service, or a lot of times they don't think through negotiation, right? Or they don't think through sales skills.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can develop those, then it really doesn't matter what area you go into, right? Because let's just say that let's say we'll use incident response. Let's say I'm working as an incident responder and now I want to move into pen testing. Yeah, maybe maybe it's an easy transition because I have contacts and everything after I've done it for a period of time. But if I can sell myself effectively of like why you should give me that chance, Renee, it's so much easier than, oh, well, let me apply to 1,000 job applications. In fact, there's I think he's former FBI. I keep seeing him on LinkedIn. And he keeps applying for jobs and not getting any response. I mean, like, this is a guy with credentials, right? But when you do it that way, you're fighting those ATS systems, right?
Right.
And so the best way to do it, and the way I learned to do it, is instead of applying to jobs, you want to position yourself where when people hear your name or follow you, whatever, they think of that thing. So as an example, incident response. Let's say I'm somebody brand new. I'm trying to get my first job, whatever. This may go against what all the gurus tell you, but I would say don't apply to jobs. And I'm not saying just sit on your couch and be like, it's going to come. But what you should do instead is show me what you know, right? So like leverage the power of LinkedIn and film videos or do posts or whatever. And like show me that you know Splunk. Right? Show me you know Nessus, whatever it is, right? A SIM tool, or if you want a vulnerability scanner, for those that don't know what those two are, show me some logs, and show me a video of you walking through some logs and showing me how you identified that there was an attack, right? In this set of logs. Like these skills that you're going to be doing in the job, show me, right? Because when you do it like that, you position yourself as a thought leader. And when you're a thought leader and people always think of, all right, this person knows incident response, or this person knows like Renee, right? I think of recruiting, I immediately think of Renee, right? So when you position yourself like that, what we call the marketplace in business, the marketplace, the hiring managers or recruiters that are looking for these people, they're going to be like, oh, incident response. Oh yeah, that guy or gal over there is really good at that, right? And then they're going to reach out to you and say, hey, I don't know if you're looking, but I got this cool role that just opened up. And you don't have to interview at that point, right? It's just a formality at that point to do the actual interview and send your resume and stuff. So it's a different mindset, right? A lot of people apply to 1,000 jobs and never get anything back. But if you do it a different way, I always like to do it different than everybody else, right? Like,
this is so important, Ken. I mean, everything you're talking about is so important because people don't understand it. I had this exact same conversation with someone who reached out and asked for advice, and it's the same thing. I pretty much said the same exact thing to him. I said, you want to put yourself out there so that people are coming to you. You want to be kind of the honeypot. Like you want to be that, oh, they're coming to you. Like, oh, this person is a thought leader in the space. And I said to him, influencer. And I said, a real one, not like an Instagram one, like a real one, a real person who understands their craft, who's putting out great content, who knows what they're doing, that people are like, oh, the first name that pops up, and they want to come to that person, and you need to become that person in your little world. And it very, very quickly, you don't have to be applying to a zillion jobs because, to your point, I saw a post earlier, I think it was late last night, early this morning, where this poor young lady is posting, she says she applied to all these jobs, she's super frustrated, going through, the ringer. I think her name is Dana. In any event, just super frustrated because of all these postings. And then you get one call back and you're one of thousands of people that are applying. And then somebody goes in, or the ATS rules you out. I think it like pretty much gave her an automatic, kind of like a boomerang response, saying that she wasn't qualified. So it's just like, oh my goodness, I spent probably half an hour applying, and in 5 minutes it dings me out. And your method, and what I've been preaching too, is the same. Is like, apply, yeah, but like don't spend your life doing that. That should be a sliver of what you do. If your pie is 100%, that's probably like 10 to 15%, maybe 20% max. The other 80% is really, really building that network, becoming that thought leader, a real one. You do the research, you put the information out, you provide the content, all that good stuff. So Philip Wells says, become a subject matter expert. He is absolutely correct. And then Philip says, I need to be doing all of this. So Danielle had a question. What are some keywords to get into cybersecurity that don't have cybersecurity in the job description? And Danielle is actively looking. She's been on here faithfully, awesome, actively looking for opportunities. So we're going to try to help Danielle as much as possible. But what do you say, Ken?
So there's a lot of words, right? So Danielle, ask yourself, and a good place to start if you haven't already is the NIST framework, right? Look at the KSAs, and it's probably, it's going to take you some time, right? There's a lot of them. But look at them, or reach out to Katia. I think she's got a video that kind of breaks down that, so you don't necessarily have to look through all that stuff. But I would start there first, and you want to look at some of the tasks that you'll be doing in a job and just see what meshes with you. And that's just assuming you don't know what you want to do yet, right? If you know what you want to do, if you know the job role you're looking at, then look for the keywords of those tasks, right? Those tasks or the skills that you'll be doing. The other thing I'll suggest is, and sometimes that's in job description. Sometimes those are written by HR and they have no idea. Like we've all seen the one CISP, it's entry levels, but you need a CISP and you need 10 years experience as a CISO and ridiculous ones. But as far as words, terminology, it really depends on the job you're looking at. And it's really tough when you're starting out because if you've gone through like a university program or a boot camp or something, like you're exposed to hacking and you're exposed to, the defensive side and maybe some forensics, and you're exposed to maybe some GRC side, and you get exposed to all these areas and they call it cybersecurity, and you graduate a certificate or something, but you're not specialized in anything, right? And so you have to figure out where you want to go first, Danielle. And I know that's generic, and feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn and we can chat more about it, but figure out what kind of job you're looking at first, then look at the skills that they list in the job descriptions around that, and then search for those skills. Start on LinkedIn or go to Indeed and search for, let's just say they say experience with SIM tools. So search for SIM, right? On LinkedIn and Indeed, and see what kind of job titles pull up. Because I've seen some really weird job titles that unless you search for the skill, you'll never find, right? And that might be because people aren't searching like that, that might be the job that calls you back and you get your first job because you took the time to actually look and do a little more interrogation on these job sites. So start with the job role you're looking at and find the skills for that, and then go to, and I see someone just posted the framework link in there. So, okay. So it's in the chat or whatever. I can also send it to you if you guys reach out to me on LinkedIn, but start with what you want to do, then look at the actual like skills, keywords and stuff they're putting in the job postings, then search for those. Don't just search in LinkedIn and Indeed. Also go to, YouTube and Google are both a great search engine, right? So type in that there and see how other people are searching for things. And that might give you some other keywords to use. And so you have to do a little, what we call market research, right? Do some market research. And then from there, then you can focus on, if you don't have those skills or you're not really good at them, really, like Renee was saying earlier, really get good at your craft, right? Really focus on those skills and then go project-based. People get so many certs. My gosh, there was someone that reached out to me that had like 10 certs. I'm like, what are you doing? Are you going to just collect certs and never get a job? Like, this is going to go against, everybody's opinion, I guess, but don't get certs. Like maybe get Security Plus or something, but like if you're starting out, and maybe a cloud one, right? AWS or something, like just something to make your resume go through the ATS system. But otherwise, don't go get CEH, don't get OSCP, don't get that stuff. Like do projects, right? Show the projects, because projects show the passion. Certs don't show the passion. A lot of people get exam dumps. They go, OSCP's hands-on, but like for the ones that aren't, people get exam dumps and they don't know anything, right? You ask them to configure a router, they don't know anything about it because they did an exam dump for CCNA. don't get certs, right? Unless your job's going to pay for it, or that, if they're going to pay for it, great. But if they're not, don't waste your money on that stuff. Get projects, get the hands on, show you can actually do it. And then you can worry about, like, once you've got the job, then you can worry about spending money on certs and degrees and all this stuff, and much love to all the universities out there. I've got a master's, but I had military money to pay for it, right? Like I wasn't going to go get that, and pay for it out of pocket, because it didn't make any sense, right? It didn't make any sense unless you've actually got experience. Then you go get those things.
Right. Ken, you said don't get certs, and I just want to add in that I have seen in my recruiting life that corporations, private, Fortune 100, Fortune 1000, that kind of stuff, don't overly look for certs at all. They want to see that you've done the thing. So when you say projects, that's exactly in the vast majority of the work that I've done. It's been, from a recruiting perspective, mostly Fortune 1000 organizations. 90-something% of the time, it's, can this person come in and hit the ground running? Can I put them in front of this keyboard, and can they do what they said they can do on the resume? Even if it's a little bit. So from an entry-level perspective, they don't expect you to know everything. Hopefully, you're entry level, you did a little project, you're familiar, you show the passion, like, I've done these things, you have it posted, you have it out there, so your social proof shows it, you have it on the resume, it shows it. And those are the people they tend to want. I've heard a numerous amount of times from many, many, many leaders that I don't care about certifications. It doesn't matter. Some of the people that I've placed in the most recent roles that are getting upwards of, high 100, 200 grand, that kind of number, don't have certs. So just so people really understand that Ken is absolutely right when it comes to private sector. So what I did learn, I was on with Justin Jones yesterday and last week, government related stuff, almost always there has to be a cert, right? So when you say get the security plus, get something so that you're checking that box for them, it's like, okay, it's typically they say security plus or CISSP or something, or a certification. So one cert can kind of satisfy that criteria to check that box. But that is one area where he said, and I've do a little bit of government contract recruiting, not a ton of it. Like the vast majority of my career has not been that. It's only been like in the last 2 years or so where I do have some clients that are either our government contractors, and they do want like a certification. But in most of the time, it's not like tons of certs. But what he was saying yesterday, that in his role, like if you do not have a cert, it's a full stop. He can't do anything with you. So that's the caveat there. So Danielle wants to know, do home projects count? Okay, so Katia and Danielle, I know you're seeing this, but she says she did a quick look at your profile. So look up project management in NIST, and then also reach out to her. So Danielle wants to know, do home projects count? And after that, Phil, because we're coming up on an hour, Phil wants to know, what am I doing wrong? Because he's got projects.
Okay, so I'll start with Danielle's. Yeah, home projects count. As an example, let's say you want to be a network engineer or a network admin, showing that you've set up your own Cisco, home router, your switch, showing that you have your own racks, goes a million miles further than having CCNA, right? Like showing that you've actually done it. So yeah, any home projects, think of it as you're baking a cake, right? And this will go, I think, to Phil's a little bit too. So just because I have the frosting of the cake doesn't mean that I have a cake, right? Or just because I have the eggs doesn't mean I have everything of the cake. Now, when I combine all these things, that's when I make the delicious cake. And by the way, I'm not a baker, so I know eggs go in a cake. I think I don't really. It's maybe sugar. I don't know. But you have all these ingredients, right? So think of your life and your career as you're making a cake or a dish or whatever food thing you like, right? You have all these ingredients that you can do. Now, some ingredients are a little more important than others, right? I guess I shouldn't have chosen a cake because I don't really know the ingredients, but if I don't have sugar for my recipe, then it's not going to be a good cake, right? Because it's not going to be sweet or whatever. If I don't have the frosting at the end, maybe that's not as critical because maybe the cake itself is sweet. So everything's got kind of a weight to it. And so when we talk about the projects, those are a little heavier weight than, say, the sugar on top, which is more of the getting the certs or something, right? Or getting the degrees. But when we talk about the branding, the sales, the soft skill stuff, where you really have to learn how to position yourself in the marketplace and really and also form really good connections, and not just liking people's posts, like actually like trying to get people on a call, like, hey, can I ask you questions about this? Or, hey, do you have resources on this? That stuff's what I would consider the base of the cake, right? So like the base of the cake is the most important. If I don't have, let's say it's a 10-layer cake, I don't know. If I don't have that first base, the rest of it's going to fall over, right? So it doesn't matter how great the frosting is. It doesn't matter how great the rest of the layers are. If I don't have that solid base of the fundamental stuff, then everything else falls over. So to your question, Danielle, the base of the cake is the home projects and also branding yourself and improving your sales skills. I mean, there's books like I'm looking at it, the Sandler Rules. There's a lot of sales books out there, but at the end of the day, you kind of learn these techniques and you talk through it. Like so on the sales aspect, actually create a script, right? Like pretend you're going in for that job interview of whatever you're going to apply for, or what you think you're going to apply for. And figure out any objections that you've either had from experience or that you think that recruiter or hiring manager or whomever is going to throw at you, right? Like, oh, well, you don't have enough experience, or, so think through all those and then make an answer for those, right? And practice that script as much as you can, because number one, you're going to be a lot more comfortable going into an interview. And number two, you're going to be able to knock down every objection basically that they have. And if they come up with something you don't know, and let's say you don't get that job, put that in your script, figure out an answer to it, and then you go to the next one. And pretty soon you're going to find that you're going to get the job. Now, to your question, Phil, as I was mentioning, the base, right? The main part of the cake there. If you're doing projects, how do people know about it, right? Like you may be doing projects, you might be posting it on your LinkedIn or something, but like if you're not seeing that people care about it, or they're not liking it, or they're not reaching out to you, then you're probably using the wrong medium. Why don't you start a podcast and just say, this week I'm going to talk about the project that I worked on this, and you're going to explain it a little bit, and you're going to, maybe have a video of you walking through it and say, check me out on my YouTube channel, because you can see, me hacking this thing, or what. I don't know what you're doing, Phil, but you can see me hacking this thing on YouTube, and you can see it, whatever. And it may not happen right away, but probably the medium that you're doing is the wrong medium, right? Or you just have the wrong audience, right? Because the way to do like LinkedIn, for example, it can't be all about you, right? Like I know recently I did some things because I'm really proud about the show, but I never make LinkedIn just about me. I try to share things that I think would benefit people, free resources. I try to give, people, some love, some props and stuff like that. And so if all you're doing, Phil, on like LinkedIn, for example, is posting me, like that's a turnoff, right? Like just pretend you were going on your first date, right? Like you go on and if you're married, I won't tell you what, but if you're going on that first date, right? Like if you're like me, oh, I do this, I do that. Unless the other person is really weird or crazy, like they're going to be turned off by that, right? Like they're like, this is a bad date, and they're going to give you body language like this is not going to work out. So you can't be all about me, right? And so you have to do the same way with social media and everything. Like with your projects, maybe figure out, Phil, what you're doing now are there like volunteer things out there that you could contribute on, like volunteer things as well, because of the skill set you're learning? The other aspect is there anyone that's trying to get in cyber because you're always a chapter ahead of someone else, right? So in the book of life. And so is there anyone else that's maybe trying to get into cyber teenager or something that you can maybe show how to do those projects, because then you can say, hey, I teach high schoolers how to do, I don't know, I teach high schoolers how to learn Nessus, right? I don't know what you do, Phil, but you got to think outside the box. So if the project thing is not working, it's usually related to the branding, how you're posting it, how you're showcasing it. So you may explore creating a podcast. Those are pretty easy to do. You might explore, well, I say that, but they're actually really difficult. You can do, Renee will tell you, you can do a podcast. You might just do a YouTube channel. You might just do, most of us aren't on Facebook, but you might do a Facebook Live. Like, there's a lot of different ways to kind of get your name out there. And just because you're not getting engagement on your post doesn't mean people aren't stalking you, right? Like, I've had a lot of people that never like or comment on a post reach out to me, and then, we do a deal, or we have, create a good relationship, whatever. So not everyone's going to like and post, and not everyone will do that immediately, because when you put out content, Phil, you have to understand that someone might see that a year from now. And that might be you have to be patient with it. That might be the thing that catalysts you into that dream job that so you may have to work the job you hate for 6 months or something, but then all of a sudden, because you're doing these things all the time, I like to say it's like a snowball, right? You roll a snowball down the hill, and as it's going down the hill, there's going to be some rocks and whatever else, right? Those are things in life that are the challenges of life. And if you let that stop you, then the snowball only gets so big. But if you keep going over those and you keep getting more snow, and so, by the time you get to the bottom of the hill, you got this massive snowball, and that's your success, right? And so you have to keep going down that hill of life, and it's really challenging. And sometimes there's like a huge boulder in the way, right? And you have to figure out the way to get around that thing to keep going down the hill of life and build your snowball up. So, Phil, I will say, ping me on LinkedIn so I can look at kind of what you're doing. I'll give you some more direct advice, but usually it's more about if we think of that cake, again, I should probably learn how to, before I use analogies, Renee, I should probably learn how to bake a cake, what ingredients go in it. But
people understand.
Yeah. Like you gotta do the fundamentals, right? No matter what it is in life. I see Sharon's making a website, showing videos of you doing your own projects. Yeah. You can have your own website. In fact, I encourage that if it's in your budget. I had someone reach out to me.
Ken, let me just read it because this goes on iTunes too, and sometimes people aren't.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
So Sharon Lawrence says, I heard sometimes making a website showing videos of doing your home projects can work too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I encourage people to get your own website where it's pretty low cost, right? To get a website these days, to just showcase your brand. Like, you're a brand. Like, too many people are tying themselves to a company. Unless that company is paying you for your brand, like they pay you a salary to do the task in your job, right? They don't pay you for your personal brand. And you have to understand that. And it's a mind-blowing thing sometimes for people that are kind of in that employee mindset, right? Like, I'm gonna work a job, and I never want my own business, but you are a business, right? You're a personal brand. And so the website's something good. If it's in your budget, don't go taking loans out to get a website up. That doesn't make any sense, right? There's YouTube.
It's so easy nowadays. Goodness.
It is. Yeah. It's so low cost. But still, if you literally don't have a budget, just film and put on YouTube, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with that, but you do want some place where you kind of live, right? Like, where your brand kind of lives, and it could be Twitter, I guess, probably not the best one, but like LinkedIn, YouTube, your own blog, your own website, all these things are great places for your brand to live. Because, again, going back to my point earlier about Phil, you never know when someone's going to see that thing years from now, right? And you never know what kind of impact it's going to have. You might be talking about your struggles with something. Hey, I'm trying to learn coding, and man, this Python stuff's hard, or whatever. Python's easy, but if you're trying to learn, it's difficult. I'm trying to learn Golang, and it's so terrible. Somebody might see that 5 years from now, and then, oh gosh, they're going through that same struggle I did, and they figured it out because I'm looking at all their other videos. So you never know what kind of impact your stuff will have on someone else. So yeah, website, whatever you want to do, but you need to get your brand out there. That's a mistake a lot of people make. They try to be all super secretive, like they're a CIA spy or something. Like, if you really want to, and I get it, right? There's weirdos out there, there's bots out there, there's nefarious people out there. But the reality is, if you never showcase your skills and you never reach out to people for help, you're never going to, like, I don't read minds, right? So like if you think that we connect and I'm going to magically read your mind and reach out to you and be like, hey, I just had this random thought that you were trying to learn this. Here's all these. Sorry, that's not going to happen. It's never happened. Reach out to me though, and you say, hey, I'm looking to learn this. If I don't know it, if that's not my specialty area, like, threat intelligence or something, guess I'm going to connect you with Chris or Ron, right? Because they're masters. That's their craft, right? So you have to tell people. You have to reach out to people. You have to leverage the connections you have, and don't be creepy. Just PSA announcement. PSA announcement for anyone.
Don't be creepy.
Yeah, PSA announcement. Look, I get a lot of women and men, but predominantly women in the industry sharing stories with me of weirdos on LinkedIn as well, right? You're beautiful, whatever. Look, if you're out there and you think that that's the approach, because some people have a different mindset. If you think that's the way to approach someone on LinkedIn, it's not. I mean, I've had that happen. I'm like, did you look at well, I know I'm a stud, but hey, but like, that's not the way. So like, and also the way isn't to be like, gimme, right? So as an example, let's say that Renee and I just connected, and let's say I was someone looking for a job. I'm not gonna send my resume to Renee. I'm also not going to be like, tell me what jobs you have, right? I'm gonna simply say, thanks for connecting, Renee. It's great to connect. Let me know if I can ever help you, right? And she'll probably respond back, yeah, it's good to connect, whatever, right? But if she doesn't respond back right away or ever, it's not going to break my heart. I'll reach out with another message like, hey, I liked your post on this. Thanks for sharing the helpful resource. Because I can tell you from my own experience, I get like 400 to 500 messages a day on LinkedIn, right? I mean, I've got over 10,000 plus connections, and I try to respond to everybody. What I had to do is I basically have a couple days a week I respond to people, because if I spend every day doing that, I'm never going to get anything done. So just because someone doesn't respond right away as well, that's another message. It doesn't mean that they're a jerk or whatever. Sometimes they miss it because they get a lot of messages. Sometimes they're busy. Sometimes people don't check LinkedIn as much as you think they do, right? So just a PSA announcement out there. We probably have a pretty broad audience around the world. That's the U.S. culture I'm talking about, right? So if you're not U.S. culture and you're not familiar with that, it's be a little more gentle on your messaging, be a little more patient with people, and you'll probably have a lot more success building real relationships.
That's really, really good advice, because I don't think people fully understand, Ken, and you're similar to me in that, as a recruiter, there's a couple of different people. I serve the people who are my clients, who are typically an organization and a leader, and then their messages are coming in, and then the people who I'm doing outreach to, those messages are coming in. So you can have 300-400 messages, and you're going through to get to your priority messages, and then you go down a list, and you get to the other folks, and we ultimately want to help everyone. Hence why you're putting out the TV show. Hence why we have this Breaking Into Cybersecurity. I mean, this came about because I can't answer all these messages. Let me just put something out. But you hit on so many different topics here. There's so many things. Philip, connect with Ken with your question. He wants to know how much do recommendations help? I don't see them overly helping that much when, like, if you're talking recommendations on LinkedIn. What do you say, Ken?
Yeah. So recommendations, again, going back to the cake analogy, right? Like
it's the cherry.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's a great. Yeah, it's cherry on top.
Cherry on top of the cake. It's like, it's nice.
I probably actually should have used a hot fudge sundae analogy. That would have been better. But yeah, no. So recommendations are nice. They're a way to showcase what the marketplace says about you, Phil. They're good to, especially if you decide to have your own website and stuff. They're good to basically say, like, what do people say about me type of thing on your website, and just copy and paste those into your website. Are they are they going to be the first thing someone sees? No, because on LinkedIn, they have to scroll all the way down to your profile to the bottom to see those, right? So they're not necessarily the big thing, but they may be a differentiating factor. So if you don't have any, I would ask people for them, like your boss or whomever. If you don't have a cyber job, then when you ask for recommendations from people, just usually try to give them some direction, but like, hey, can you write me a recommendation around my customer service skills, right? Like, let's just say you don't work anything technology and you're working at McDonald's. Can you write one for me around my customer service skills or my time management skills or just anything, right? Because you never know how that cherry on top might help. It's not a major factor, Will, for a job seeker. Now, for a business owner using LinkedIn or leveraging LinkedIn, it could be the difference between you getting business or not. It's a way for, again, going back to the marketplace, for them to talk about the results that you've given, right? Because when you run a business, it's not about you. It's not about your fancy logo. It's not about your website. Like I've already got press releases and media coverage for the show. I don't even have the website built. I'm working on that today, right? So it's not about the technology and stuff when you're a business owner. It's about the results that you can get, right? Like I already know I have results for the show, right? I already have viewership. I already have all these things. So it's more important for a business owner to have those recommendations, Phil, because they show what results you've actually gotten for past clients. But for a job seeker, going back to Renee's, mention, it's a cherry on top, right? It's if I was still comparing you to someone else and figuring out who I'm going to call, and like you both have pretty much everything the same, right? You're putting out projects, you're gonna experience, all that stuff's the same. I'll look at recommendations and be like, oh, people say Phil's good. Ken doesn't have any recommendations, right? So that might be the difference there, but not necessarily. So that's a long answer of saying it's not that important for a job seeker. But I still recommend that you get them in there, right? You still need them in there because it helps in the LinkedIn algorithm to get your profile surface more.
And I would also just add a little additional nugget, or from a manager and a recruiter perspective, we would hope your recommendations will be people. It's almost like doing references, right? You're never going to give us a reference that says Phil sucks. So it comes with that, from a hiring manager perspective and a recruiter perspective, it's probably the last thing that we look at, if we look at it at all. And it truly is the cherry. Like if it happens to be someone, like if I know somebody in the industry, or we know somebody that's super well respected in the industry, and they have their, this person wrote them a recommendation. It's like, oh, and I'll give a quick example before we go, but like Kevin Mitnick had written was somebody's recommendation on their resume. So that was like, whoa, Kevin Mitnick is the person's recommendation. Interesting, like that's clearly a big deal. But as for all the other thousands of resumes that I've seen and LinkedIn profiles that I've viewed and things like that, it's really not that super important. That if we were going to rank things, I would do what Ken said earlier in terms of your project, getting your projects out there, getting them posted and all that kind of stuff, because then you'll start to get recommendations from people who are watching what you're doing. So there's that. So, Ken, it's been an hour and almost 20 minutes. Goodness gracious. You were like the longest podcast we've had in a beautiful, awesome way. Danielle says, hire me because you can't go wrong with a good win. Katia says, follow her YouTube channel, Katia's Sci Life. So because she answers all the questions that people have.
Just real quick, Renee, Danielle, put that at the top of your resume. When you apply for jobs, put that at the top of your resume. So when you do get past the ATS, or when you send your resume to a recruiter, it's a conversation piece, right? Like it shows your human element. Put that was phenomenal, a phenomenal headline. In fact, you actually, if you don't have that already in your headline of your LinkedIn, you should put that there too. That's great. You should be a copywriter. Anyways, go ahead, Renee.
He's giving you more jobs, Danielle. You're going to be working for Ken shortly. Ken, thank you so much for being here, for being a guest, for being the person who you are, for being the hype man, for being, training so many people in security, connecting with us on so many different levels. and being such an awesome resource. And we all cannot wait for this TV show. So when is the first episode airing? Let people know, and let people know how they can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn. The website, when I build it, will be cyberlife.tv. So that's where you can go. It's not built yet, so you go there and nothing will happen. And I don't have an exact date yet for the first episode launching. I'm planning early November as of right now, so possibly the first week in November, but I will keep everyone abreast on LinkedIn. So that's why I say just connect with me there and keep an eye out for my posts, especially as it gets closer to November.
Awesome. Excellent. Thank you so much, Ken. Thank you for being my fill-in since Oprah couldn't make it today. So I got Copra here.
There you go. There you go.
Netflix Copra.
Yes.
I got Copra here. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you all on a Sunday afternoon. I can't believe how busy we are. Like, so many comments and everything else. I wondered about Sundays. Through Cybersecurity Awareness Month, we'll have someone on every day. And Ken, I cannot thank you enough. And audience, I cannot thank you enough for being here. And thank you for being a part of another episode of Breaking Into Cybersecurity. Have a good Sunday afternoon, everybody. Bye.